Red Web. I'm Brad West, your host for our critical analysis superhero talk show. Of course, with me today, my husband Bo is going to be joining us for this episode, as well as my wonderful co-host, Ms. Anastasia Anderson, and my partner in crime fighting, Mr. Greg Burrow. He's on loan from us from Dragons Lair Comics and Fantasy on Anderson Lane. Make sure you check them out. We love them. In fact, these comic books here provided today to show you for examples are on loan from them. Today we are going to be talking about the DC Comics Future State line of comics. It's a 2-month initiative that they're running with some alternate storylines, and they're playing with the characters. They're giving new creators an open playground to see what they can shake up. And for better or worse, there's some really interesting storylines. Whether any of those are going to actually make it into the main continuity is something we're going to discuss, and we're going to talk about which ones we read, which ones we liked, what we thought about them, and where we'd like to see it go from there, if anything. So let's start off with Greg. Can you give us a rundown of some of the titles that we are going to be discussing?
Well, Future State is interesting because it doesn't really follow one timeline. There's a bunch of them that are kind of set in the same time frame, like after everything that happened through the dark metal stuff, the death metal, all that kind of stuff.
Yes. So
but there's also
if you check out DC's page, they do have a rough timeline to help you figure out where they fall in chronologically. They are not released chronologically, which has made it a little bit confusing for us to read. So make sure you check that out before you dive in.
But a lot of them are kind of intermeshing and stuff like that. But there is some storylines that are taking place way far in the future, like at the death of the planet of Earth, basically. Mm-hmm. And so that's made things really kind of confusing. But some of the stories are just really, really interesting and compelling, and others not so much.
They fall flat, yeah.
Yeah. So it's. I've heard a lot of.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of thoughts about this. There's some people that are complaining about the fact that if they want to keep up with all the titles of Future State, it's like 7 books a week. Some of them are $10, some of them are $3.99. So it's like, I think somebody like estimated that it's going to be like over $200.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was something.
Okay,
where...
on that one, I kind of gotta say I feel like that's a lame complaint. Because I mean, I can go to the comic book shop, and just with what I collect regularly, I could probably easily drop $60 to $100 in one pickup.
Yeah, exactly. But then to add $200 to that.
Yeah, and this is an additional.
Oh, okay.
Now, okay, hold on. Wait a minute. Are they still running their normal titles? I thought they put everything else on suspension, and like they're just doing this for this 2 months.
I'm not quite sure. I know that there are other titles coming out at the same time.
So there are other DC Comics titles coming out at the same time? Okay.
They're unrelated to this.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
all right.
Wow.
So that's something new to me, because actually I was under the impression that this was just going to be like a temporary take its place kind of thing.
I think for some titles it is.
Okay.
But there's other stuff like they just this week they're actually releasing the second volume of the other history of the DC universe.
Okay, well the Black Label ones are kind of,
and they're also releasing the another issue of the White Knight Harlequin. They're also releasing so there's other books that are being released.
Okay.
But
that's interesting.
I'm with Brad. I thought that I saw something saying that they were kind of putting everything else on hold while they did Future State. So
that probably will be like their main priority, but I've noticed looking through stuff, there's a couple of little offshoots where I'm like, okay, so stuff's still like running in the background. They're not betting everything on this, but
okay.
I mean,
that makes a lot more sense.
I mean, it's a jarring contrast, because it's like, you guys have been hardcore collectors longer than I have. Like, I just got to a point where I could be like, I could buy this one consistently.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and that's really hard to do nowadays, is to find titles that you can consistently buy, especially when they keep doing these kind of like special event things.
Well, and that's what jarred me the first time I saw this, is I didn't realize, like, I knew that I didn't realize that, like, some take place in the same universe and some don't. And I didn't realize that they weren't that intertwined with each other. Because because my impression that I got was like, oh, so if I wanted to just buy Immortal Wonder Woman and keep up with that for the next
You'd be
couple
fine.
months. Yeah.
You'd be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm reading through some of these and they're like, oh yeah, here's some new context, and I'm like, but where did this happen?
Yes. Now, some
And
of
then
them
I
are
find out it
standalone.
was in another comic, and if I had read the other comic, I would have known about it.
Yeah, and that's always the frustrating thing with any of the crossover kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't read the Black Metal series, so I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read that one either.
Well,
I'll admit,
for me,
I'm a much more Marvel oriented than I am DC. Give me Green Lantern. My frustration. Give me Kyle,
yeah.
Green Lantern. Or you know what? Even Far Sector. I really like her. She's in the Justice League.
She's in the
future
Justice
state.
League, yeah.
And I that kind of is one of the things that made me enjoy that one.
She's cute too.
But I've always growing up, I've always been more of a Marvel kid than DC. So that's one of the things for me. Reading the Future States really kind of is giving me a bit of pause because I'm very passionate about the DC that I do read. You know, and so.
Okay, so to start off, my opinion, the biggest detractor is it's not connected. It is a alternate reality, alternate universe. It's a big what if. It's what they
connected, but not.
It's what they used to call Elseworlds. Although they don't call it anymore.
I think it's kind of like the MC2 universe, but Marvel did it better.
Now here's what I'm saying. Here, the bad about it is that it's kind of redundant. Okay, about 3 years ago they did Future's End. Future's End was a very similar thing. Only Future's End at least was its own separate, self-contained continuity, and it was an ongoing series. And it was one book. It was one book and it had a couple of spin-offs on it, but for the most part, it was one solid story. I think it ran for like 24 issues, like 2 years or something. And they'd already done that. And several times already now we've seen in Titans, Teen Titans, Young Justice, they've all done these Titans of the Future or Titan Tomorrow, where they've got like what happens when the Titans grow up and become the new Justice League. So we keep seeing a lot of what if new future Justice Leagues all the time in the regular storylines anyway. So that to me is kind of one of the detractors of it. And however, giving it this looser structure has given a lot of really, like I said, for better or worse, they've given the creators more freedom than they would have. Like you said,
I don't know how much freedom they've got. Because there's a lot of stories that are interwoven, and that takes a lot of editorial comment.
Yeah, like there's stuff that like.
I mean, especially the Bat books. The Bat books all taking place in Gotham. That's all. They all have to know what everyone else is doing, and it has to be. The editors have to. I mean, so I don't know if they've got a lot of as much control as you think they do.
Yeah.
Well, still, it's some pretty ambitious storytelling.
Yeah.
And it's like I guess the only other one that caught me by surprise is, and maybe it's just because I'm used to just reading like full sets of the graphic novels versus just reading one or two at a time, but they've got it's like basically the ones I read, they have a big old A plot and a big old B plot, and they don't always interconnect with each other.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I think maybe that might be what DC is counting on is the aftermarket, where because a lot of times now, like even some of their main titles go straight to collected editions. There's some of the titles.
And the full story arc hasn't even come out.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're seeing the collected.
Well, no, they just stopped on it. I know the last Constantine book, they literally held back the last 3 issues. It never even came out until the collected. So with a lot of people, especially during COVID, a lot of people moving towards digital and such, collected editions.
Well, DC's definitely pushing digital.
Yeah, DC's definitely pushing digital.
Well, Marvel, I feel like is trying to push some of their stuff digital also, but not
quite the same way, I don't think, because Marvel at least still has Disney still has publishing.
It's like it looked like DC was leaning on Comixology real hard because I went on and I was like, oh.
Well, yeah, even this year they started the 6 months promise. So Jim Lee pulled out on the last that DC mini con thing that they did, the DC Day that did online. One of the things he was saying is that from now on, everything will be a minimum, at least if not sooner. It'll be 6 months later. So, them announcing that also means that they're not counting on the physical. One of the reasons that they're at a premium price for like us old people who just like to have it in our hands. So I like the smell of the paper.
Well, it's kind of like the milestone stuff. That's all going to be digital.
Yeah, that's one of the other things we're going to talk about in our preview today is what we're looking forward to next month with the new milestone stuff. But yeah,
which I'm so sad about because I'm like, that's a set I physically want in my hands.
Oh yeah.
So well, and I will imagine that they will be smart enough to do physical collected editions of those.
I feel like they would.
Individual issues, yeah.
Because it's like I'm at that weird crossroads. Like I talked to my mom about this a couple days ago. Apparently, which it's not in good condition. Someone has, or she was talking to one of her friends, and they were gonna throw away an old 1995 edition of The Death of Superman.
No.
Yeah. And so,
even if it's not in good condition, no.
Yeah, so mom saw it and she was like, "I'm gonna get this. No, let me have that. I'll give that to my daughter." And she was like,
"Poor
no.
condition, it's still being priced at like $75."
Yeah.
They saw it. Yeah, they were like, "What is she gonna do with it?" I'm like, and she told me that, and I was like, "I read books."
Yeah, right.
Like that's a book I've been needing to read.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to keep it, even if it's an old 1995 book that wasn't preserved well, so it's yellowed, and it's an older edition. So of course I grabbed it, and it's like I'm at that weird point where it's like there are ones I want to buy as this is keeping in the archives. Mm-hmm. This is stuff I want to keep, but I also sit and read these.
Yeah.
So it's like I figure they're probably trying to find that in the middle where it's like they're gonna have to put some out for the people who want them in their archives, and then for the people like me who just want to sit there and read for 45 minutes.
Actually, when I was in middle school and Death of Superman came out, and my comic shop they kept one of each copy in my file, and I was like a week late to buy it, and the store was full, and he was like, "Oh my God, I didn't even realize this was in here." And he pulls out my file, and it's got like the regular edition, and then it's got the poly sealed one. And
how many offers did you have for it?
Everybody was like freaking out. He's like, "If you want this, I have to sell it to you for normal price because this is like, but if you don't want it,"
right?
And I'm like, "No, I bought both of them, and I still have it in the poly bag."
One of my few regrets. My parents at one point bought me the novelization, The Death and Life of Superman. I love that book. Unfortunately, it's one of the ones that we had to sell.
I'm pretty sure we have it because we both had a copy of it. We only got one of them. I was positive.
Then we better have kept my copy.
I don't remember which one it is. I just know we have one of them. When we got together, we each had the novelization.
Now, I'll run it by my appraisal nerds later.
Yeah. So,
anyways.
No, it's still cool.
So one of the things I really liked about Future State was that we got to see some characters that we haven't seen in a while. Like we got to see Nubia finally.
Nubia.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. It was a good storyline.
Even though I saw like
really
3 pages,
enjoyed,
I'm like,
yeah.
Yay!
I really enjoyed Nubia.
She is the backup feature in Immortal Wonder Woman. Immortal
She's
Wonder Woman,
cool looking.
Immortal Wonder Woman. We only got the first part. It was off to a slow start for me, but the Nubia story was really good. Now here's one of my biggest
I love it.
complaints is because this is all like what if and it's not solidified. And none of this is with the canon yet. I really did like a couple of the storylines, and what struck me with a handful of them was like, this would just be a perfectly good story to do right now in continuity. I would love to see this whole play out without all of this other baggage of alternate future. Nubia is one of those. Like, I honestly would have loved to have seen like that story, and not really any spoilers, but the antagonist is Grail. If you're not familiar with her, she's the half Amazon, half Darkseid villain.
She's very cool looking.
She's actually kind of cool looking for a newer character, but having
she's one of the DC 52 debacles that stuck around. It actually wasn't that bad of a character.
She did pretty.
Well, I mean,
she looks cool. It
she's
seemed
a
like
villain,
it was
but,
a good start. I
got basically Darkseid's daughter by like a rebellious Amazon or something.
Yeah, we got to the money basically as far as I got with the Nubia part is we got to the money shot with her hair.
I
am Wonder Woman, and I'm like,
I am Wonder Woman.
Good.
Yes, it's really cool.
This is fun. I'm having fun.
It's a good story.
And talking about Nubia, I'm very excited that in February they're going to have Nubia, the real one, which is going to be a young adult graphic novel that's coming out on Nubia, which is going to be amazing.
Yeah, and it's by the same. It's in the same series as the Diana, Princess of Themyscira. So it's going to be one of the digest formats.
Which I might pick both of those up next week because the Diana one was cute and the Nubia one looks cute.
Yeah.
So. When did you say that was coming out? Next
February.
February too.
Yeah, it just says February 2021 on the poster.
I think they were saying this and the new Milestone relaunch is going to be done in February for Black History Month, and I think we're going to be talking about that when we get to that.
So you better believe I'm going to be.
So hopefully we're all looking forward to reading this and giving you a review on this in our one of our February episodes. So
yes,
that's one of the things we're looking forward to. Other storylines that we like. I liked that. I wasn't really sure where the new Rebirth continuity had the Wildstorm characters, because Jim Lee's Wildstorm, sometimes they're in DC, sometimes they're not.
Well, talking about characters we haven't seen for a while though, first, one of the ones I actually enjoyed seeing, and he shows up in 2 different books, in Shazam and in the Titans book, was Bunker.
Bunker, yes.
Oh, interesting.
So Bunker was introduced in the New 52s. And, he's an out LGBTQ character, with powers.
Oh, he's a flaming gay.
Yes, he completely embraces it. It's one of those, in the early years, it would have been a really bad stereotype that would have been pissing us all off. Now it's just another form of representation.
Right? It's another guy.
I like the character of Bunker because he's unapologetic. He's like, I'm gay, I'm fabulous, I dress nice. When I'm not in my costume, I'm still dressing to impress, And he was an interesting character.
I'm down.
That they kind of just like
he went away, he disappeared
because the rest of the Titan book was so abysmal. I didn't even understand that Wonder Girl. I barely understood. I barely understood Tim Drake, but I did not understand that Wonder Girl.
It's that pesky B plot,
right? But anyway, yes, it was very fun to see him come back into it and be an actual well-written character again. And I hope to see more of him. I hope this leads. I think that's what they're doing here. Is they're throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I figured. This is very experimental.
It's very experimental.
And there's a lot of
no.
But we also got. Oh,
jeepers. Why you like this?
Park it.
Sorry.
Park it. That's my dog. He's a wrecking ball. So anyway, going back to characters we don't see, and we're talking about Wildstorm, Julie's Wildstorm comic books. We did get, and again, more representation. I think that's one of the highlights of this entire series. It's really, really trying to up the ante when it comes to diversity and representation. And in addition to Bunker, we also get a Midnighter story. And Midnighter I can't tell you my irk with that because it will spoil it. So
I know,
I'm right
there with you.
I am right
there with you. It's one of those things that just frequently
pisses me off. Why do you think you have to do this?
Yeah, okay.
For drama's sake, which book is it in? So I can.
It's the second half of the new Batman. Okay, it's in the new Batman.
The next Batman.
Or next Batman. It's in the next Batman. And yes,
I'm like, yes,
Now, Greg was saying these are a little bit of a premium price. However, the more expensive ones are triple stories. They're giving you a nice little anthology on some of these. So next Batman, Dark Detective, I think the Superman one, even like I said, Immortal Wonder Woman. They give a couple of stories in there, so you're getting your money's worth. It's like the 2-in-1 comic.
Yeah. The only one I was really shocked with is when I sat through the Harley Quinn one. I don't know if I just erased whatever B plot was in my head, but it's like
it was very straightforward. Yeah,
it was a pretty consistent story the whole time, and then I see these other ones where I'm watching like 2 or 3 different comics, and I'm like,
that's what I found interesting about Shazam. That was
a story.
It was a story.
Yeah,
where all these other ones have it.
Nightwing is a story.
Yeah,
and out of all of them, I want to say that Nightwing's probably my favorite.
Nightwing is up there at the top.
Nightwing's up at my top. Yes.
I like the Nightwing storyline. I liked the backup stories in Next Batman and Dark Detective. I liked Dark Detective. I liked both.
Yeah, I liked Dark
Detective. I liked the Grifter story. I liked the Grifter story.
I had a lot of fun with that.
I really, and that's another one.
That would be an adorable buddy cop.
Exactly. So it teams Grifter up with Luke Fox, the previous Batwing, Lucius Fox's son, and they're really definitely in opposites opposite. Yeah,
It's a good either odd couple or buddy cop story.
And I actually liked Catwoman. Catwoman was fun.
Catwoman, I didn't get a chance to read. That was one of the ones that.
Now, one of the ones I enjoyed. I didn't dislike Justice League, but I enjoyed the Justice League Dark a lot more.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one actually was pretty cool with like Mega Constantine.
I will say this: I liked the first part of the story in Superman Worlds of War.
Okay.
Yes, that was a very good story.
It was about what if Clark Kent left Earth and everybody knew Clark Kent was Superman and how the world reacted to it. And I loved how you got all these different, like some people worshipped, like, I mean, they were pulling out his old, like, school papers and, like, trying to find context and, like,
And I understand why you enjoyed that, but to me it was a little redundant. Like, maybe I'm just misremembering when I was younger, but Death of Superman was followed up by World Without a Superman. World Without a Superman, that's
basically
the premise. And it had a lot of that in it to me.
Yeah, but it's like, I sort of get why they want to go through that again, because it's like I told you guys, I never lived through the Death of Superman. It's like I know the story, I know the basic context of what happened, but I never got the emotional devastation that people went through when they came out.
You gotta remember it was different then, though, because
that was back when Death Mattered.
Death Mattered in comics. Yeah, it still had weight.
One of the things for me it kind of comes to is, and I'm going to take this one from Doctor Who. The human race's superpower is the ability to forget.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the Death of Superman was 95. That was
93.
93,
95, one of those two.
Yeah.
No,
Actually, you're right. It was 93 because I opened it up whenever someone asked me about it because I was like, okay, what is this dated?
It's more than 15 years ago at this point.
Oh yeah.
You know, so you have a whole generation of readers now that did not live through the Death of Superman, did not live through the World Without a Superman.
We need an extra thing to pain.
27 years ago.
I'm like, we need to be heard.
I wasn't going to say that.
Right? It will remain a mystery.
But so that first bit of the story, was very much a World Without Superman, just like the Death of Superman story arc. But you got 20 plus years that people didn't have to go through that.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
so that's why I feel like that's why that section was so important.
Well, and it's like we sort of had it with the Justice League movie. Like he tried to do the Death of Superman thing, but there was no So for me, the emotional weight wasn't the same.
No.
Well, we'll see in the Snyder Cut how that changes things.
Oh Lord, that's an episode for a future date.
We need it's like, I feel like every once a decade we need like a near world ending event in our stuff for people to feelings to be heard.
I would be okay with that if it was just once in a decade.
Now they're like, we're going to press this button 50 times.
Did we do an episode on escalation already?
A long time ago. I think that's
maybe
one of the...
we need to redo that.
Let us know.
Yeah, there's some studio recordings that we did with some topics that I think their time has come around to
we need to redo.
I'm down.
And definitely, The End of the World as We Know It, I think was the name of the episode.
Right, and I'm reading Kingdom Come too. So
and that's another one of the elements that Kingdom Come was a classic, and I think they've tried to rehash some of the elements of that. Aside from seeing characters that we haven't seen in a while. I know they brought back the Shiloh Norman Mr. Miracle, which is really cool. It's one of the things I always complain about. It just like Nubia, I like it better when they go back and go, hey, we have perfectly good diversity to develop more instead of hand-me-down heroes just turning everybody into a diverse character
and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Shiloh Norman is a classic. Mr. Miracle, there's always been a second Mr. Miracle for as long as I've been reading, since like the 80s. So before that. And so them bringing him back is actually really good to see. And Nubia is really good to see. Using Bunker and Midnighter, gay representation, is good to see. Now, I'm on the fence. I understand why like the new Batman and the new Wonder Woman and the new Superman all have to shake it up and everything. I think it's kind of weird who they ended up making the new Batman, because honestly, it's a character I didn't even know about, and apparently he's been around forever.
And so that's one of the things I liked in the new Justice League book, talking about Joe from Far Sector.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Batman has always been DC's world's greatest detective. Well, now you've got the future state, you've got the new Justice League, you've got a new Batman, you've got a new, and they're talking about it, and the new Batman goes, "Oh no, she's a much better detective than I am."
Yeah, I'm not the
You know?
I'm Batman, but I'm not your daddy's Batman.
I am not Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, he even acknowledges that while yes, he is a replacement, he is not on par with his predecessor yet.
Now, Greg does like elements of the new Wonder Woman, because tell us about the new Wonder Woman.
Well, the new Wonder Woman is basically she, at the same time Diana was being created by the Greek gods, this new Wonder Woman was created by the Brazilian gods.
Yeah.
Really? I thought she was like half Amazonian. She was like,
no, she is completely created by the Brazilian gods.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And I love that aspect that they're bringing in a whole new pathos.
Yes.
Okay.
Because in the second
I want
Wonder
to
Woman,
see so much more about the Brazilian pantheon.
Exactly.
The thing that me and Greg were bouncing off each other though is that they played it too safe, so they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a new Brazilian Wonder Woman, we're gonna do all of this stuff, and then they just leaned back into the Greek stuff, and I'm like, no.
Like, I'm going to Tartarus. Why are you going to Tartarus?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And then in the Wonder Woman Superman story, they actually brought in more of the Brazilian gods. And I love that. I love that they
that's when you made the El Dorado reference.
Yes.
And I hope that they actually explore.
They had the sun god and the moon god. The Brazilian sun god and the Brazilian moon god are like shacked up.
They look like the buddies from El Dorado movie.
That cartoon. I'm like, why is she shacked up with the kids from Everett? Oh, like those are the sun god, moon god. Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's what they look like to me.
So I like that. I like that they're exploring a new mythos, because I don't know anything about the Brazilian gods. And so I think that that's new and unique and fun.
They did a cool job of mixing up the old with the new. That one, as well as a couple of the other ones. Like for instance, they brought back Solaris, the living sun. That was from the DC 1 Million storyline, I think was when he last showed up. So that was kind of interesting. I was like, oh, okay, sun god versus artificial sun god, nice. And then even with Shazam, I'm not going to give you away the whole big old point of Shazam, but it actually goes back to one of my favorite DC crossovers. And Shazam was at the center, or Captain Marvel, he was so called at the time, was at the center of that, and it was Underworld Unleashed. And so it calls back to Underworld Unleashed. And I'm like, okay, it made me really, really sad because, and I'm not going to give details to spoil, but it killed off one of my favorite DC characters of all time in a really unceremonious way.
Wait, what? No.
Yes.
So
they've killed off so many characters in this.
I know.
That was one of the
issues.
Yes,
but they're characters he didn't care about.
Yeah.
Well,
they don't count because I didn't like them.
It does make a good point, though. Like Anna said, we need to have stakes. This is an alternate universe, so then they pretty much figured, hey, we can get away with, just like obliterating whoever we want to, and some of it's just straight up shock value. Like I said, one of my favorite characters, I'm like, oh, and I was like, I seriously, if these comics weren't on loan from the shop, I would have like ripped it in half right then and there. And you know what? It would have been worth the $3.99 if I'd have ripped it in half.
Y'all missed my emotional turmoil with the Immortal Wonder Woman, because it's like on the first half, on the melodramatic half, they do this thing and they're building it up and I'm like, whatever, man. And then suddenly you see some characters that I personally hadn't seen before.
All right.
And I'm like,
I have no idea who those Amazons were. I'm with you either.
Yeah, I was like, who's these series of Connie McTighe?
That one that she was talking to apparently is important for some reason. I have no idea who she is.
The one that she was talking to, honestly, after the first Wonder Woman movie, kind of made me think of Etta Candy.
That's what I thought. That's what my first thought too. I was like,
in one of the original Wonder Woman stories, didn't Diana take Etta to?
No.
I don't know. That's why I'm confused.
Golden Age.
I just see
Golden Age. She took the Baroness. Silver Age. She took Harbinger. And then the only one in the modern age that they adopted was Supergirl.
Yeah, and I got so excited, and I was like, who are all these little hottie nicotties? And they were like, oh my god.
And don't forget Wonder Girl.
And Wonder Girl, yeah.
They did. It's like if they're about to go into noble battle.
Did they adopt Steve Trevor's mom also?
Did they?
Because that's who she's named after.
Yeah. Well, in
one story arc.
I was
George Perez version.
I think so.
Anyway.
I was so upset because I was like, oh, who are these? These guys are cool.
Boom.
Gone.
Yeah, I know. So
what the heck?
Yeah. I will say this really quick. There is not one title that I read out of all of the Future State stuff that is positive and hopeful. Everything is more a double down on the dark.
Yeah, that's one of the.
I think my biggest complaint, and usually you usually hear me go off on this about what they keep doing for Wonder Woman.
They even called Nightwing out on it. Hold on, I gotta find this.
But it's you can't have it. So the Superman one, they actually talk about it. So they talk about it in the Immortal Wonder Woman, where she's having a conversation, and they talk about her being the heart and compassion of the Justice League.
Yeah.
And that's Diana. That's Diana.
Yeah.
She is but this new Wonder Woman, I'm loving the Brazilian influence, and I'm loving the Brazilian mythology and everything. The new Wonder Woman is a psycho.
Well, and
she's violently.
Sadly, that's what DC's been trying to turn Diana in for the last 20 years.
And I don't understand why. But in the Superman one, they're talking about all the things that, and you get the one character who has that pivotal conversation, but they turn it back to when he was a symbol of hope. And that's what...
It's what I actually called him out. I was like, man, you are grim darker than you were before. I'm like, somebody referring directly to
my
Nightwing.
feelings are hurt.
It's like Nightwing as grim darker.
Right, it's like pointing it out doesn't make me feel better.
Yeah, but I don't
just what we all need in a dark time like the pandemic and all the political stuff going on.
I don't understand why we are so intent on depriving ourselves of this hope.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it's
Superman has been a symbol of hope since I was a child.
Yeah.
And then you get Zack Snyder's Man of Steel.
And it's not like the emos are in charge anymore anyway. It's like at one point
Wonder
I'm like,
Woman has always been a symbol of hope. Then you've got DC's New 52. And why?
And I think
why can't we have these symbols of hope that are willing to stand up and fight for us?
There's somebody somewhere up in the chain who is convinced that that's what the market wants. And
no, it's not.
Because we keep giving them money.
Well, yes.
It's like, I'm like, as much crap as we're going to talk about it, how many people are going to watch Snyder Cut when it comes out?
Yeah, but we're going to hate watch
it. There's at least 4 of them.
Yes.
Right here in this room.
We're still going to watch it. Okay.
People are still going to watch it. People still begged for it. They put more money in it because they knew we were going to pay for it.
How much of it is because you want to see more Cyborg?
I also want to see more Cyborg.
How much of it is that you want to see Wonder Woman?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, well...
More good Wonder Woman.
It's like, well, and the thing that's giving me whiplash with this, and maybe it is because it's like, basically, they were all good and they read them as they went along. I looked at the list and said, these are the 5 I'm going to read.
Pick and choose, yes.
And it's like, with the tentpole characters... with Wonder Woman and with Batman, and I'm sure with Superman, the problem is the A-plot is very melodramatic, and very dark, and very hopeless, and very sad, and then they have a really funny or a really cool plot after that. That's not them.
Yeah.
So I'm getting this emotional whiplash where it's like I'm watching, it's like I'm watching Bruce Wayne tear through the city, just haggard and sad looking, and then it's like, and then there's a buddy cop thing, Drifter and Luke Fox, and I'm like, well, this is more fun, and then I go to this one, and it's like,
was it positive, or did it give you any hope, or did it?
I had fun.
It
It
did.
was
they were in a dark world, they were being arrested,
but
were
the
escaping
characters
from
themselves were still
like
playful. They were still
happy
even though it was obvious that Luke did not like Grifter. You know,
Yeah.
and then the other characters are like, you know, I
It's
mean,
like-
oh, it's Grifter. You know,
Yeah.
but they actually, he was still like, he's like,
It's like dark
You know, what is-
characters
what is
or
that?
white characters in a dark story give me
what is
hope,
that Catherine
because that
Tate?
means there's a way. To me, that means there's a way out
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
like-
it's like that. It's like he's like, I'm above it. I don't care. He's just like, it literally.
It was hilarious.
He's like, I am what I am, and it's like, it's like literally the Grifter story. It's like, yeah, okay, so now Gotham is overrun by the magistrate instead of
Right.
the Joker, whatever.
And he's like, oh
It's
yeah,
like,
he's like, oh
same
yeah.
crap, different day.
Yeah.
He just, you
Yeah.
know, and I
Right.
think that's why I like
will
that
say-
story.
Right now, the DC I'm liking and reading is the young adult,
The young adult
and
stuff.
the kid
It
stuff.
looks
The
cute.
Diana, Princess of the Amazon.
Because
Well, because
it's
it's
giving
hopeful.
you hope.
Yeah.
And I think that's
And
one of the
the
biggest
sad thing
problems
is
they
that
just
DC
undermine-
fired Michelle Wells, who was the reason all these were happening.
the young content editor, yeah.
Really? Oh.
She was the vice president and the executive editor of all the young adult and kid line, and they fired her.
But they also fired the guy who was running up the Black Label too.
Yeah,
Aw.
which is another thing that was
Which
really
is
fun.
now you
with-
got, and here's the problem. I think they were on the right.
Wasn't
I think-
detrimentally depressing.
I think DC was on the right track, and they just didn't make it there yet.
Yeah.
Was that, you know, comparing and contrasting the modern audience to back in, say, you know, like the 80s and the 90s, where, you know, there was the move in my generation from comics are for kids and comics are a legitimate adult medium too,
right.
to
It can
now-
be for everybody.
to now it's accepted that they are a medium that can appeal to everybody. It's just a matter of developing the content and marketing to those and the diversity of the
Yeah.
market.
Well,
And I think they were on a good track with that, with the young adult novels, the main continuity, and then the Black Label. And if they would have just been able to figure out the voice for the main continuity, instead of trying to make it too childish for the older readers or too dark for
Well-
people like us, you know, I think they could have succeeded, because back when they did Vertigo was a big experiment, and it was
Yeah.
very
It
successful.
was extremely successful.
Because it gave them the chance to explore those darker, mature themes without having, and it didn't mean that the main continuity didn't have drama or stakes or anything. But
Yeah.
it didn't have to be gloom and doom and dredge and violence and just depravity.
right.
You know what I mean? That's not, and I don't think that all of the creators, or at least the executives, it's not always the creators. In my mind, it's always the executives who just don't get it. It's
Yeah.
people coming in going, okay, you know, it's the same people who put Venom in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
That's just my brain.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like it's a
Right.
weird contrast, because it's like I grew up. It's like I grew up in that kind of in the middle period where we were just getting out of the cartoons are only for kids, and because people thought cartoons were just for kids, I could watch things like Cool World
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and nothing was wrong. And nothing was
Or-
wrong
or,
with that
you know,
until they watched it.
Legend of the Overfiend.
Yeah, stuff.
Oh
like-
my God!
it's
Why'd
like-
you bring that one up?
It's
When they played the
No,
bookstore,
it's
somebody put it in a bookstore for kids in
So,
the
back
You
when
were like,
back when I was in high school. I don't know if you remember a store called Hastings Books and Videos.
Yes, I do.
They had a section set up where parents could just drop their kids off to watch cartoons. And
Ugh.
I actually talked to one of their employees after this happened. They were giving a list of videos that could be played for parents to leave their kids to watch. And because it's an animated movie, Legend of the Overfiend was on that list. Because it's a cartoon. It's for kids. The
Oh,
hell
yeah.
it is.
Okay,
No.
hopefully this doesn't have to get beat, but basically I'll break it down for you. It was a penis tentacle demon. That's
Yeah.
literally what this creature was.
And it's like we're getting to the point where it's like I've noticed
It's
this.
one of the most
Kids
hentai
can-
of the hentai.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'd ever seen it though. No,
It's
this
not
cracked my
good.
ass up the first time I saw it. When they showed
Don't
it,
do
I went to
this,
an anime-
guys.
I went to an anime.
Yeah.
I went to an anime convention that when we were dating, and I never was an anime person, like ever. Bo's the one who got me to watch anime, and we're watching it, and there are like boobs galore. And I'm like, and they're like, oh, you're having fun? Are you enjoying the anime? I'm like, I'm just getting tired of the boobs, you know. And then one of his friends, one of his straight friends,
One of
his
the-
straight friends is like, oh, you're tired of boobs? We're gonna play Over pornography for you. I'm like, what's that? And I was like,
Oh,
just watch. I didn't even know it was coming. And I'm just sitting on, and it's like, I lost my crap. I was on the floor, man.
But yeah, no, it's been one of my.
If you don't know it's coming, man.
Right, but it's been one of my biggest frustrations, and Legend of the Overfiend is just the easiest one to use. But it's been one of my frustrations.
That's a more extreme example.
Yes, it is a very extreme example, but I've seen it happen.
Right,
But
or
when we
people
worked
being
at Best
like, oh
Buy.
yeah, we could watch Akira. It's fine.
Best
That's for
Buy,
kids. I'm
You
like,
have
oh.
but that's what they do. They put Akira. They put the Batman movies that are PG-13 in the kids section. Well, it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
Your
I would literally have parents. Eventually, I just got tired of telling them because they would always act crappy about it. But I'm like, okay, yeah, this has the Hulk on it, but you do know that this is like super violent. It has cuss words in it, right?
You
Yeah,
do realize
and
this is a PG-13 movie that you're buying for your 6-year-old.
This is not a 6-year-old Hulk movie.
Yeah, like I'm the tail end of the latchkey kids, so it's like as long as I didn't die, they were like, whatever. It's
The
like,
house was still standing when our parents got home.
right?
It's fine.
I wasn't crying at the end of any of it. I was watching like horror movies and crazy stuff like that since I was a kid.
I had nightmares for months after Star Trek 2 because of the worm in his ear. Like,
Oh, God.
like seriously, my parents could not console me. I slept with my ears covered
It's like, but
for
it's that,
months.
yeah, it's that kind of thing where it's like they realize that they notice that kids will take more and more and more stuff. Like, I mean, I saw kids going to the Deadpool movie. I was still looking at it like, don't go to this movie.
Yeah.
Don't take your
You're like,
It's
fine, don't go
Deadpool.
to
It's
this
a
movie.
comic book movie. I don't care. It's rated R.
All right, so the point we're making here is, yes,
It's like kids,
DC
they
Future,
think kids can tolerate more. So
DC
they
Future State has some interesting stuff going for it, but they're
Yeah,
definitely not kids' comics.
Like,
We're gonna
they're
put that one
leaning-
out there right there.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're leaning
so-
more into these continuities
In
because
fact,
they're
looking
like,
at
kids
it
can
right
take it, it's
now,
fine.
all of these are rated ages 13 plus.
Okay.
So
I can see it
if
at
you're
13,
going
I
to the
guess.
comic book kid stores and you're taking your 8-year-old with you and you want to pick up Future State,
Just don't do it. There's other books.
if I see you there, I will stop you. I'm not going to stop you because, Dragon's Lair is helping us out. But think.
Right? It is.
Especially when they've got good content like
Yes.
Nubia book and
Nubia's
stuff
coming,
like
yeah.
that.
There's a
And
lot of
There's
good-
another one coming out and soon. It's in the same series called House of L, which looks really really
I've been
interesting.
seeing that. And I've been trying to figure out what that one is.
It's actually ironically has very little to do with Superman, but it's kind of like a young.
Except for they're all in blue and red with the big S shield on them.
No, that's just showing the one family. Actually, the story takes place amongst some of the. Basically, it's a class discrepancy kind of storyline where they're actually. I read the first few pages of it. It looks really good, and it comes down to like, if you saw the Snyder Man of Steel movie, where they were using the genetic codex to produce everybody. Krypton.
The TV show Krypton.
Well, yeah, they did it on the TV show Krypton too. Yeah, it's more along the line of.
That's kind of what it sounds like.
It's more along
because
the
the
line of
TV
the
show,
Krypton.
TV
But
series
instead of
was actually
being-
very
Instead of
classist.
it being related to Superman at all, really, it's just like other young adult kids who are growing up in this class discrepancy, and it's really interesting because the take on it is they're saying, why would a super society that's so scientifically advanced, so smart, that they genetically breed everybody for their class? You're a working class, you're a soldier class, you're a science class, or whatever. And yet somehow nobody believes when the scientists tell them that the planet's gonna go kabooey.
Yes, well,
And-
Is it a dumb reason?
a lot of these arguments in the last year have fallen away.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I know.
Because, it's like
For 4 years we're telling people that
I'm sorry, my favorite meme for
Right? We
this
can't
last
talk
year
too
has
much mess
been
about this anymore.
we need to get rid of the saying stay away from it like the plague. Because obviously we don't.
obviously no.
Well,
So-
and it's like we've seen so many like post-apocalyptic things where we're like, why didn't this person believe them? And we can eat our words now.
And
Now we know why, because nobody
So,
believes
can
it.
eat our words.
the fact that no one believes Jarrell at this point, unfortunately, I can buy.
Well-
because at this point, you will have your people that are going, oh my God, Jarrell is right.
Terrell was right.
We need to figure
I
out how
just
to
want
do
that on a
this.
t-shirt.
Right.
Terrell was
all you have your ruling class going, he's a crazy man. That's not how it really works.
Yeah. So anyway, it looks pretty good, especially since it's written for the young adult audience, but it gives you that kind of sense of like, why the hell these people really, they're so manipulated by media, by class, by any number of things that even the people who do believe it can't really do anything about it. And it looks really good, especially because the story started off. The story apparently, I was reading an article with the writer, and she was talking about how it was originally just going to be one issue, but she's like, no, I need this story, or one book, but she's like, I need a second book to make this story work. And then they're like, you know what? Why don't you just take 3? And she's like, this is like my first comic book I've ever written.
Oh God!
She's like, I was excited about writing 1. I was worried about writing 2. Now they want me to write 3, but it turned out to be 3. And I really like her story with the artist too, because she's like, she was asking about, they were asking her, you know, how do you feel about the artist, and did y'all gel right away? And she's like, well, here's the deal. The first artist they sent me had a death in the family, and then the second artist they sent me got like COVID. I forget what happened to the third artist, but by the time they got to the first artist, I felt like for the fourth artist, she's like, I felt like I was like interviewing drummers for Spinal Tap. It's like, oh my God, I want to warn them away before something horrible happens.
Oh my God!
I just laughed so hard. Never will that movie not be relevant, but. Anyway, it looks good too. So at least we do have something. If you're wanting something for the younger viewers, and you want to be looking at,
and these books are so
important for the younger viewers. For people like me who want symbols of hope.
Oh my God, Greg loves his Diana, Princess of Themyscira. We mentioned that on
Princess of the Amazon.
Of the Amazon.
Princess
well,
of the
regardless,
Amazon.
We brought that book up like I don't know how many times on this show. So if you haven't,
it was a cute one.
It was
very much was.
Which is why I'm excited about the Nubia book, because I think if this even half as good as that one is, it's going to be good.
The Diana, Princess of the Amazons is actually for kids, and this one's going to be for teenagers. So
this looks like a
I think the House of Elwyn
girl
is
teenager
too.
thing.
I think the House of Elwyn was too.
Those books are so important though, because of the fact that kids can read them and they're accessible to kids, so that they can actually get into these characters. Because that's when people really need to get into superheroes, is when they're kids.
And
because it's so rare for an adult to come in and read a book, a comic book or whatever, and then get into it. If you weren't like exposed to comic books when you were a kid, you're more likely than not going to pick them up when you're an adult.
And that's the thing right now. In our pop culture heavy society, I mean, there's so many other things to choose from.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I feel that DC is dropping the ball on this one. And and Marvel, I think, still wants to do that. I think Marvel still wants to capture the imagination. They're trying to find ways to be able to capture a wider range of imagination. But DC, to me, it just feels like they're losing touch.
They're doubling down a lot.
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird another weird contrast for when I was a kid. My main thing I started out with was anime. And it's like I go on my little old man rants. Like, back in my day, I had to buy something in Japanese, to find that one book in Japanese, and just hope for the best. And, like, you just had to watch Yu Yu Hakusho 40 times.
I still can't read them backwards.
Have you ever actually watched
every time.
Ranma One Half?
Yes, I have.
I love Ranma One Half.
It's like,
and I get so many people these days that they talk about how much they love anime, and I'm going,
Naruto does not count.
Have you ever watched? No.
I'm not even an anime guy.
You know what? I'm not saying it doesn't count, because just because I don't enjoy it doesn't mean someone else can't.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's one of those. I work with a bunch of people that want to be anime nerds. Okay. That are anime nerds.
Right?
Sorry.
You have to go through the ancient tomes first.
But yeah, it's like, okay, so have you ever seen this? Okay, what about this one? Oh, Naruto.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm glad you enjoy something.
Right, well, and it's like...
Here's what I recommend.
It's like, when I started,
well,
basically your choice was to either go to the obscure Japanese store and maybe find an anime, or like go to a corner in your high school in hushed tones and someone will have a DVD of Akira to share. And
when I was a kid, the way I got to see anime is I went to University of Texas to their anime club.
Yeah.
And
or
that
you
was
had
how
to go
you
to
found.
an anime club.
Yeah.
That's how you found anime.
And it was all bootleg at that point.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
how I saw Ranma One Half for the first time. That's
Yeah.
how I saw Akira
it's
for
all
the first time.
mainstream.
When we were in Denver, when we we lived in Denver, there was this one anime store. It was fantastic because you could get animes that had not been released in the States, and they were $5 for complete sets.
Wow.
Jesus.
However, as soon as that anime hit it a stateside actual release, it jumps up to like 30, 40 because
Yeah.
that's the market value now. And when it didn't have a market value here in the States,
Okay.
they sold it for
So
$5.
it's like-
Well, you know what?
but yeah,
We
this
need to do a superhero anime show.
Yeah, just
Bring that
this
on.
it. But yeah, now we have
And I will even
a
concede
bigger-
to Dragon
And I will-
Balls
I
because-
will-
we have so much
admit,
more choice than
right
we used
now,
to now.
I'm enjoying manga more than American comics
Yes.
because they're a
Yeah.
lot more creative. They're a lot more character driven.
They take a
And-
lot more risks.
Yeah.
And
And your heroes are heroic and
and I
hopeful.
think
Your bad guys are, wow, we really went there.
So I think
I love
that's
it.
one of the ironies that we're dealing with right now in comic books in general as a medium is that they're ironically not taking risks by being risque. It's like
Yeah.
they're so conditioned now to believe that everybody wants deconstructed, gritty, the boys bullcrap that they're not.
Another fun
realizing
later
that-
episode.
We're going to do an episode straight up on deconstruction here soon because it's
Right.
getting to a breaking point where I'm just like I said,
They're
not
like-
even able. But that goes to the whole thing we're saying about we're losing those new audiences because now we're getting to the point where we're so saturated with stuff like Snyder's Justice League and the boys and
It's like everybody's got a lot more choice than they used to. It's
Well,
not
but
just
it
you do
doesn't
one
seem
thing,
like
you do
it though.
another.
It seems like the first thing that you have to go to is the dark and gritty and the deconstructed. And
Right.
we're
It's
forgetting
like-
that that's not that.
but even so, even if it's dark and gritty and all that kind of stuff, that's fine if the story is written well. I liked Nightwing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't
Yeah.
like
There are
a lot of the
actually
other
a couple
ones
of them I was invested in that
Yeah.
I was like, I can follow
because
I
they
did.
were written well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were written well. This is true.
And there were some that, like, especially if this is an experimental phase, if you tweak it, I think it would be fine. Like
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
the Harley Quinn one had a lot of infighting.
But the concept
I-
of them using her as a snitch and kind of forcing her to be like she's
And
not a
using-
hero. She's not a hero necessarily.
Well,
but they're
heck, she's not even really an anti-hero at
she's
that
not
point.
even an
Well,
anti-hero. She's a one-person Suicide Squad, and they're using her to snitch on all the other supervillains.
Yeah,
Well,
because
I like
it's
that.
a matter of her survival.
It's a matter of her survival. That's a compelling story. Yes, it's dark, but it's a
It wasn't
compelling.
as dark as some of this other
It's
Yeah.
a
stuff, though.
compelling, character-driven story. It's like
I
she's got
hated-
survival.
I'm gonna have to say it. This is my opinion.
That was what I
I
was pulling out of here.
Hated the fact that they totally disavowed the last 10 years of Harlequin growth.
comics, yeah.
Of Harlequin growth. They basically said she had no superpowers, and they actually said in the comic that her only worth is being with her boyfriend,
But
and that
what
without
is-
the Joker, she's nothing. And I'm
But-
like, no.
but-
Joker, even in the animated
But-
series in
but-
her first appearance, Joker was the one holding her back.
Yeah.
Right? But for what it's worth, two things happened that made me like, okay, I can sit here and read through the rest of this. Or, well, three things. One, everybody has their one superhero that as much as you complain, fine, I'll sit through the growth story. That's why we watched the same Superman 40 times. It's like, that's why we watched the same three stories. But it's like two things happened. One, it was Scarecrow saying it, and I'm like, he's kind of a douche.
Yeah, he's got
so-
yeah. Scarecrow
No,
is-
Like,
Scarecrow
I
didn't
thought
say
it
it. It was the guards beating her up at the beginning of the story.
It's like, but even then, it's like it was one of those. I thought it was going to be the entire thing, like they did with the Birds of Prey movie, where just constantly they're like, "You're nothing without him."
Yeah.
But this one, it was like a
more like they
couple
were
of
trying
things.
to get into her head. So
Yeah,
it didn't
and
necessarily
and
mean that it
even-
was so. It just means that other characters were saying that to screw with her.
Right, and then after that, she did.
Trying to make her not trust herself.
Yeah, and even then she took her power back faster than I thought by
Yeah.
the end of that because she's the one who convinced him to get her out of her shackles. She's the one who
Yeah.
it wasn't a thing where they had to torture her or anything. She
No, I
was just
did.
like, oh yeah, this ass.
So
Just
other books that we had, I know I did like the Robin book, Robin Eternal with Tim Drake again, and it brought back Stephanie Brown as spoiler. I'm confused as to where it fits in with the story, with the rest of the continuity, but it was a good self-contained story by itself. I like the fresh take on the Lazarus Pit.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
So that one actually had a cool, interesting storytelling. Again, I think it's one that could have very well easily just been written into current continuity and been a story where, I want Tim Drake to come back. The Flash book, I'm still kind of holding out hope for, because especially considering Flash, of all of the DC characters, that's his main shtick. That comic book, it didn't matter who's the Flash, even the darkest storylines, it's always the Flash is about being hopeful and friendly and bringing people, goodwill and stuff. And
right,
so
he's a chill dude.
He's a chill, yeah. And it kind of makes me sad, because it's like, they're gonna make Wally evil again, but I'm willing to sit through it, because
That's your
you also
superhero.
told me that Wally was your favorite of the Flashes. So
he is my favorite of the Flashes.
Yeah.
And so him going evil is almost as bad as them killing the other guy. But
yeah, it's one of
anyway,
those, after a while you're staring at it going, fine. Keep
and
it.
that's another thing that I have a problem with, is that, when you're messing with these characters like this, there are some characters that people are really attached to and they love.
And when you go off book that far,
Yeah, it gets it.
Well,
It gets exhausting.
Let's I know we're talking about Future State, but Spider-Man is one of the best examples of that. The whole One More Day and all that.
How many people dropped that
did
book?
they lose from that?
Yeah.
And did they learn their lesson?
Right, and it's like, how many?
Sort of.
I've heard an alarming amount of people who were like, I basically dropped Superman, or I basically dropped Spider-Man after One More Day.
Yeah.
Just stopped entirely.
There's an entire run of Spider-Man that had half the readership that it would have had if they hadn't done that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with some of this, I feel like that's what's on the verge of happening.
Well, I think that's why they
Well, I
decided
will
to
say
make it an
this:
alternate
I stopped
reality.
picking up Batman at issue 50.
When
when
they
they-
Catwoman.
When
the
the
wedding and
Catwoman was supposed
Catwoman-
to get married.
And it was the stupidest reason I mean, I was just like, really? This is the stupidest reason ever. And I was like, this is.
I remember reading that one.
That's
It's
the
like
problem with this.
that reasoning is lame. Even if you'd have gotten it to be Harley to try and get that into Selena's brain, the reasoning doesn't work.
It
No.
still sucks.
It's kind of what my problem is with the Flash, the Future State Flash. It's just not within the characters, and even then, if you have to pull out the whole Hal Jordan parallax, okay, for y'all that lived through the '90s DC and the big thing that came from Hal Jordan parallax, and he wasn't evil, he was a villain.
He went bad.
Went bad. There's no way. If you read those comic books when they came out, he straight up lost his crap and he became evil.
His grief
and
broke him.
His grief broke him, and he murdered all the other Green Lanterns. He murdered He straight up murdered
Jesus.
every last Green Lantern. He murdered them. But then, years later, Jeff Johns brings him back, and
Well, it turns out it wasn't really Hal.
him.
Hal was possessed by the fear entity known as Parallax.
So there
Don't do
There was
that.
there was
That's
this
not
monster
cool.
living inside the Green Lantern power battery that actually
that
drove him.
caused the yellow impurity in all the reigns where you could beat Green Lantern with Robin's cape.
It's the Phoenix. Okay, she murdered. She blew up that star because she was powerful enough and she wanted to do that, and she actually just didn't care that there was another planet there that just happened to get obliterated. But then they had to bring it back. No, it wasn't really her fault. She was possessed by a space entity thing.
And it's
I'm
like,
sorry.
if you're gonna make a risk, commit.
If you're gonna
Yeah.
and that's my thing. That's
Well,
my
but
thing with
you brought it up. The original story arc with Phoenix was 3 phases.
And 8 o'clock, guys. So if you're
Oh my gosh.
following
You
us
said we
along,
could go till
we're
like-
going to be going on
Really wanted to cut me off
for
at
30
the
more
end.
minutes. But catch us on Red Web every other Tuesday. And
Make sure you go to Kaiju Labs Media on YouTube and like and subscribe. Tell us what you're thinking. Give us any feedback or ideas for future stories. We are going to go for just a couple more minutes to wrap these up, but at the 8 o'clock point, we've decided it's going to be the thing now. Is we're going to make sure everybody's on board with the, like, you know, the talk. You get the talk. Click, like, subscribe, respond. There you go.
Etc.
You got it. All right.
Yeah.
Now,
All right. So
Oh,
Phoenix
sorry.
was originally supposed to be 3 parts. They cut it off at the end of the second part because I think they changed editors or something at that point. But it was supposed to be, one, the costume was in 3 phases. Green and yellow,
not gold.
red and gold,
Uh-huh.
and then white and silver.
Yeah.
Because the green and yellow was her coming into the power of Phoenix.
Okay.
Her learning that what she was really capable of. The red and gold was power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Uh-huh.
White and silver
We did it.
was a journey was supposed to be a journey through the afterlife to her coming back to who Jean Grey really was.
Yeah, that was her
But
redemption.
after the
time.
Dark Phoenix and after they killed her, before you got that redemption, one of the editors are going, nope, Jean's dead. She did something unforgivable, and we're just not going to deal with it. And they actually tricked them into bringing her back, starting with Madeline Pryor, to eventually finding Jean's body at the bottom of Jamaica
All right.
Bay.
That's a Marvel thing. And we're on the DC Future State. I know.
That's okay. We wanted him to get his feelings
We
out
got his feelings out.
before we ended the show.
So anyway, before we end the show, make sure you go check out your local comic book shop and check out Future State. Like I said, some of y'all out there might just love the grim and gritty, and you know we are just like.
No,
Can
there
I
are,
only say,
there are
I like-
several stories within here
Yeah.
that actually have
There's a lot of
really
potential.
good potential.
Yeah.
Like I said, out of all of them, I've enjoyed Nightwing. I have enjoyed the Titans one.
I like the Dark
A
Detective
couple
one.
of the Green Lantern ones I was okay with. But my favorite, I would have to say, is actually going to be the Dark Justice League. I am interested to see how that one turns out, especially with who Etrigan ends up showing up being paired
Okay.
with in that
So,
one.
all right,
That
so
was just funny.
This is
to
where
me.
we're gonna leave off. Your
Well,
recommendation.
hold on. I've got a couple of things I want to say really quick.
Sure.
if you
I
don't
was gonna
mind.
say which
Yeah.
one's your favorite.
So I want to say that I don't mind dark and gritty. Some of my favorite stories in DC are dark
It
and
has
gritty.
value.
The Killing Joke, the Long Halloween. You know, they've got, of course, you could even say that DC New Frontier is dark to a certain degree.
Okay, there's
But-
a difference between dark and gritty and gratuitous gloom.
Thank you.
Yeah, dread is not a fun feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like sitting there and immersing yourself in dread is not
Like
fun.
even the Watchmen had its place.
Yeah.
It's when everything decided that it had to be the Watchmen that we're starting to lose touch.
But it's not even The Watchmen. The Watchmen was really well done.
Yes.
The graphic novel, the movie was okay. Have you read the graphic yet?
Yes,
Okay.
3 times already.
I was hoping so, but
I'm
going to
say this just because of one scene. I hate the Watchmen movie.
Which one?
Oh, I know which one he's talking
He's
about.
talking the Rorschach one.
The
Yeah.
Rorschach.
Oh yes, the Rorschach one.
Because
Correct.
that completely destroys his character.
It
Yes,
does.
It does.
It does.
It does. I am interested in seeing. I did like that the Shazam book has a new question, and I'm curious to see who that is.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm curious to
Because
see.
it's not Montoya.
It's not Montoya or Vic Sage, so I'm
Jesus,
curious.
I might just sit and read all.
Yeah,
of these.
so I am kind of interested in that.
Well, I will say also, I'm interested to see what happened to Renee Montoya.
Yeah. So okay. So let's leave our final thoughts. The book that I'm most looking forward to is even though I'm a little pissed at the Midnighter story, I still want to finish it. I'm really interested in the Grifter story because I like some of the Wildstorm elements when they play in properly, because those characters, when used right, are good in DC. I was afraid they completely separated them after Rebirth, so
Yeah.
that's good.
I kind of liked them when they used them in Marvel.
Yeah. Oh, right. But I do also like the Robin, the Nightwing, and the Nubia. I'm really,
Yes.
really wanting to see that.
Nubia was amazing.
I really want to see more of
where that
Nubia.
book goes.
Yeah.
Because
You already told us-
I especially love the nightclub.
Yes. So you've already told us which ones you want to see for. We're going to leave off with which books do you most want to see? Are you most interested, invested in, and would you recommend for the readers to watch?
I liked Immortal Wonder Woman, and I did like Dark Detective. That one I I might be sitting through and buying more of.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which one are you most interested in reading? Which one do you recommend the most? That's the most fun that you had. I know you said you like Nightwing.
Nightwing was good. The Nubia story was fun. I really want to find out more about Nubia. I'm glad that they brought her back.
Yes.
Anything with Diana in it I'm gonna like it just because I love that character so much. But I did not like the end of that story.
Yeah.
You know, just before we finish, I want to point out that like every one of us was kind of meh on the new Superman. Like nobody felt the new Superman. Like we didn't even barely mention. We mentioned the old Superman on War World in his book, but the new Superman, the Jonathan Kent Superman. I don't think anybody actually.
And I have to say that I want to find out more about the Amazonian Wonder Woman, and hopefully, she grows as a character so we get rid of the psychopathic nature of that character.
Well,
if they can temper her violent tendencies, her overwhelming urge for violent tendencies.
Yeah, she was like a mad dog on a leash for half of that.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's like, especially with team up things, I'm cool with one character, like a new version of a character being a little weird, as long as it balances out with another character.
Yeah.
If there's another character,
Right now,
if there's another character that's more the heart of the team, then I'll be like, okay, whatever. But
Now,
but
why
the
didn't
the new Justice League, the team up with Wonder Woman and John Kent Superman, Brazilian Wonder Woman and John Kent Superman, I don't feel like you have that.
yeah,
All right.
and it's like we'll find that out.
What other titles are still left to come out? I know that the new
Suicide Squad is coming out this week.
Okay, and the new Aquaman, right?
I think so, and that cover actually looked really
No,
good.
okay, so Aquawoman is in the Justice League.
Yes.
It's Aquaman and Mira's daughter.
Yes.
But the new Aquaman book is actually Jackson Hyde takes over
Oh, okay.
as Aquaman.
That
And
one I'm interested in.
and Aquawoman
So then,
is
Keep an ear out for those.
yes, and that one's interesting
that was
because
also another one of those double representation because
And I'll also say
he's not only a
Catwoman
black Aquaman, he's a gay Aquaman. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out.
the Catwoman was interesting and fun. So I'm interested to see where they go with that. I thought that the Gotham Siren story, and I think it was it the Batman, the next
Yes.
Batman,
And the next
has
Batman.
Catwoman and Poison Ivy in it,
Okay.
Okay.
and that was fun.
All right.
So yeah,
Then yeah,
DC Future State. You've got
Not all
an
bad.
idea of what to look for and what to read, and hopefully we gave you some good information without too much spoilers. We appreciate you dropping in and checking in on us this week. Next week we're going to be back in 2 weeks for Chinese New Year,
Chinese New Year.
and we're going to
guys.
be celebrating with our wonderfully fun friend Frank Wee, who's been on our Teen Titans episode, and I think the Wonder Woman episode.
Yes.
He's going to come and talk to us about Chinese representation in superhero comic books.
Yes.
We're even going to be talking about our thoughts on the upcoming Marvel Shang-Chi movie and The Curse of the Ten Rings, as well as the DC Comics Chinese Justice League, and some really fun, interesting, and also some what's the word I'm looking for? Infamous poor representation along the history.
Yeah.
You're gonna get some. It's gonna be a
fun
lot.
month.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of dish on this. So
It's like, yeah, because we're gonna have Chinese New Year, and then we're gonna have the Black History Month one after that.
and that
Yeah.
one's gonna be
It's
good
gonna be
because hopefully we'll get a chance to review Nubia.
I'm excited for
The
this one.
new milestone books that are coming out with a new Static Shock, and I think they're going to be doing a new Icon and Rocket
Yes, they're
series.
doing Icon
I think
again.
it's called Icon and Rocket this time. She's actually getting the billing, which is kind of cool.
that's good.
She was actually the
She
main
was
character.
pretty much she was pretty much the main character in the first
one.
run.
I think
Yeah.
she's gotten a lot more mainstream acknowledgement because of her appearances on Young Justice. So it's a good character. So I'm looking forward to that. And
Yeah.
also the Jackson Hyde Aquaman book. So yeah, we got a lot of cool stuff coming up for y'all. Make sure you check in with us, and we really appreciate you. Anybody have anything else?
Nope, love you guys.
All right. Well, thank
See
you.
you
Love
later.
you, and y'all have a great one. Till next time. This has been the Red Web with Brad West and friends.
Yeah.